composed the Tehillim, just a story about the power of Tehillim. That the Baal Shem Tov once said that there was a situation where there was a decree against a community. He saw in heaven that, God forbid, something negative is going to happen. And he got together his colleagues. They were all great tzaddikim, spiritual giants. They prayed. They did whatever they knew to do as the spiritual giants that they were. But they saw that they have not succeeded in canceling this decree. And then the Baal Shem Tov went a step further. He went up to Shamayim, he went up to heaven, and he tried to do whatever he can in the spiritual realm, and he still couldn't succeed. And he realized that there's nothing he can do to change. On his way down, the Baal Shem Tov says, as he was descending, he saw a brilliant light shining somewhere. And he went to look at that chamber that had a brilliant light, and he was told that there's a Jew, simple Jew, who works all day, but as he works, he recites Tehillim. And every day he finishes a Tehillim 5 times. He works in the field. And the Baal Shem Tov found this Jew, and he said to him, tell me, I want to ask you a question. If you would know that with your reward in the world to come, if you would give that away, give the merit away to save a community, would you do it? And he said, well, he doesn't know if he really has such a merit, but if I have such a merit, of course I would give it away to save a community. And in that merit, the community was saved. So who was this? Not a scholar. Again, the Baal Shem Tov and his other colleagues who were amazing, amazing tzaddikim, they couldn't accomplish it. But the Tehillim of this simple Jew who recited Tehillim with absolute sincerity and simplicity. In fact, he might have even done things that were not permissible. Working in a field, he might have been reciting Tehillim in places where you're not allowed to pronounce and read words of Tehillim because it's not a clean place. But nevertheless, he did it with such simplicity and such sincerity that this penetrated the heavens more than the great accomplishments of these great tzaddikim. And many stories that the Baal Shem Tov told along these lines. So the essence of love for a fellow Jew is because a Yid is a part of Hashem, the Torah has Hashem's presence in it, and therefore love for a Yid, love for Hashem, and love for Torah is really all one. Before we go on to the next, are there any other questions? I just want to add, based on what I just said, it says in Hayom Yom that the Alter Rebbe was once asked, which is greater, love for a fellow Jew or love for Hashem? And the answer was a very strange answer. The answer was that love for a fellow Jew was greater. Why? Because if you love someone, then you love those that he loves. Being that Hashem loves every Yid, so therefore, that's even greater that I love those that Hashem loves. But I don't understand. How could there be something greater than love for Hashem? Can't be anything greater than that. That's greater than anything else, and that's the beginning and the end of everything in creation. How can there be something that's greater, in some ways, higher than love for Hashem? But based on what we explained, it's a little bit easier to understand. Love for a fellow Jew is an expression of my love for Hashem. And that's the question. Which of the two is a greater expression of my love for Hashem? When I love Hashem, purely love for Hashem, or if I love Hashem by loving a fellow Jew? And the answer is, it's much more challenging to love a fellow Jew than to love Hashem. Hashem, that's easy. He's up in the heavens. He's abstract. I could love him. But then when you're dealing with a human being that's in your realm, and there might be certain issues, that might be getting in your way, competition, jealousy, maybe they hurt you. It's much more challenging to have that feeling of love for Hashem as Hashem is invested in every Yid. So therefore, yes, love for a fellow Jew is not a higher than love for Hashem. It's a deeper expression of love for Hashem. That in spite of everything, my love for Hashem is so powerful, so unconditional that I love this person regardless. Naturally, in our generation, it goes a step further. People are not just ignorant of Torah, but unfortunately, the majority of Jews don't follow Torah and they violate Torah. And yet, what the Rebbe teaches us, based on the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, that our love for every Yid should be just the same. And in fact, we see that when you practice this and you love your fellow Jew just because of the fact that his essence is pure and he has the neshama, that only does one thing: it helps in a certain way stimulate and open up that godliness in him. We know that in other circles, when there are people that violate Torah in their presence, they get very angry, they scream at them. There are places where they actually throw stones at them. Sure, you heard all these things, because they're so angry that they're violating Torah, violating Shabbos, and other things that are similar to that. But unfortunately, it never brought anybody closer to Judaism. It only made them go further away from Judaism and made many other people go further away from Judaism. The approach of the Baal Shem Tov, the approach of the Rebbe, which is to love every Jew and to tell every Jew, you're my brother, you're my sister, we're one, and I love you regardless, that, if anything, brought out the good in the person and brought the person to appreciate and to love Hashem, which is really what the essence is all about. Okay, we're ready to go to the next. We have two more things to cover. One is the Fnim Mishuras Adin. So we said one of the things that characterize the Chassidic way of life is to go beyond the letter of the law. Why is this connected to the Chassidic way of life? And why is this something that helps stimulate or develop the emotional bond with Hashem, the soul of Judaism? How is this all connected with the previous things? So the answer is, why would a person go beyond the letter of the law? You know, sometimes some people, they wash their hands for bread. They just wash it once on the right hand, once on the left hand, and that's it. And then there's a custom, a Chassidic custom, we wash it 3 times on one hand and 3 times on the other hand when we wash for bread. So we're doing more than what's required according to halacha. Why? Perhaps Chassidim are a little bit OCD, and they're just afraid that, well, we didn't do good enough, to try something more. It's not a good thing. It's not a positive thing. So why would they go beyond halacha? It's difficult enough and challenging enough to observe halacha. Why go beyond halacha? And the answer is, of course, there are 2 ways to observe mitzvahs, to observe Judaism. One is Hashem is the king. Hashem is my creator. He's the boss. He commanded me to do this, that, and the other thing. And I have a responsibility to listen. And that's what I'm doing. Do I necessarily enjoy it? Not much. Maybe not everything. But I'm doing it because I know that I have to be responsible to Hashem and have to listen to Hashem's commands. So I'm doing it as an obligation. When you do something as an obligation, then I do what I'm obligated. Why do I need to go beyond what I'm obligated to do? But when a person serves Hashem with love, not an obligation, I love Hashem. And anything that I do which helps me and enhances my bond with Hashem, makes me more excited, makes me happier, and therefore I'm doing the mitzvahs. So that person is actually not satisfied with just doing what I'm obligated to do. They want to go beyond what they're obligated to do. And again, just like in a relationship between 2 people, there are certain things which are considered the normal sort of responsibilities of husband and wife. how a husband has to relate to the wife, how the wife has to relate to the husband. And there's two possibilities. One possibility is where, well, we can say there are three possibilities. One is where, unfortunately, there's a lack of respect. The husband would say that there's something he likes or something he doesn't like. The wife won't respect it. Or the wife would say there's something she likes or doesn't like. The husband doesn't respect it. That's not a good relationship. The second scenario is where the husband would say that this is something he wants or doesn't want. The wife would go along with it. And the same with the wife, with her spouse. But what if he didn't say it? What if he didn't express it verbally and say, this is what I would want? Even though I know this is what he wants, but he never told me that he wants it, I don't have to do it. That's when you're in a relationship where you're fulfilling your obligation. But if it's a relationship based on love, then you don't calculate, you don't count. It's not tit for tat. It's basically something which you enjoy and you want to do. And therefore, even if the other person didn't explicitly say, I would like you to do A, B, and C, if I know that's what they want, then I enjoy and I want to do that. In fact, the only way to express true love to another person is when you go out of your way and you're doing something which is not sort of the obligation. It's not the normal thing that you're obligated to do. When a husband buys a gift, goes out of his way to do something to make his wife happy, goes out of his way to do something which is not part of the regular routine, and he does it just simply to show and express his feelings. Those are the kind of things that express love. But doing the things that are just you're obligated to do and you're responsible to do, that's your responsibility. And the same is with Hashem. That being that the Baal Shem Tov teaches us, and the Baal Shem Tov is guiding us, that we should do mitzvahs out of love for Hashem. We should build and strengthen that emotional bond with Hashem. When our emotional bond, when we do mitzvahs out of love, then we do mitzvahs not measuring, not calculating. This I'm obligated, this I'm not obligated. Actually enjoy going beyond the letter of the law. I always think of this sign that I saw in a business. I once was in an office, and they had this clock where people punch in and punch out. And there was a sign near the clock. And the sign read as follows: if you don't believe in the resurrection of the dead, come here at 5 o'clock. What that means is very simple. When you walk into the office, 4 o'clock, 4:30, people are tired. You can see they're half asleep. They're sluggish in their work. Suddenly, 5 o'clock, when it's over, everybody becomes alive and well, and they're getting up and they're going out, leaving the place of work. Why? It's 5 o'clock. I'm not responsible after 5 o'clock, but that's the worker. What about the boss, the owner of the business that's trying to grow the business and wants to make as much profit as he can? He's there 5 o'clock, he's there 6 o'clock. He doesn't count, he doesn't calculate. In fact, he needs his wife to call him, it's time that you come home already, the kids are waiting for you. Because when you're doing something with passion, you go beyond, because you're passionate about it and you're invested in it. In fact, there's a story in Chumash which illustrates this. The story is with a sorcerer and a non-Jewish prophet whose name was Bilam. And he was hired by a king. We'll learn about this in the Parsha coming up in the book of Bamidbar. The Parsha is called Balak. His name was Balak. And this king hired Bilam, who was a sorcerer, that he should curse the Jews. He felt that a military confrontation with the Jews, he's going to lose. But this is somebody that has some sort of spiritual powers. He's going to succeed in eliminating them through cursing. He went to a certain spot, opened his mouth to curse them, and Hashem put in his mouth, instead of curses, a blessing. And then he said to himself, okay, this didn't work. Let me try from another spot. Maybe it'll work over there. And again, he opened his mouth to curse, and instead of a curse, a blessing came out. In fact, one of the famous blessings that came out of his mouth is in the Chumash, and we say it in davening every day. Matovu alecha Yaakov mishkanasecha Yisrael. That came from him. And he tried this 4 times. Later, when he met the king was furious. And he said, I hired you to curse them. And not only you didn't curse them, you blessed them. How dare you do that? And he said, I'm sorry. And he used these words in Hebrew. Lo uchal lavar pi Hashem. I can't transgress. I can't violate the words of Hashem. If Hashem tells me to bless them, I can't go against it. On the surface, it sounds like, well, beautiful words. I can't go against the words of Hashem. But if you think about it, what did he say? I won't go against the words of Hashem, but he didn't mind going against the will of Hashem. When he did it the first time, and instead of a curse, a blessing came out, it's clear that Hashem didn't want him to curse them. Why did he try a second time? Why did he try a third time? And the answer is he wasn't interested, and he didn't have that love for Hashem that he was interested to do what Hashem wants. His interest was, I can't violate the words of Hashem. And that's not the true kind of relationship. So therefore, yes, in Torah, there are things which were obligated. And then Hashem gave us a gray area. It's not an obligation, but if you want to, you can go beyond the letter of the law. And that gives me an opportunity to be able to express my true love for Hashem. So here, this is the answer, that generally speaking, why is it that the Chassidim go beyond the letter of the law? Because Chassidim are focused on love for Hashem, and this could work 2 ways. One is that I love Hashem so much that I go beyond the letter of the law, and the other is the reverse. If I don't have the feeling, by going beyond the letter of the law, it'll help stimulate true love for Hashem. And then we come finally to the last thing, and that is about the miracles. How are the miracles connected to Baal Shem Tov? And how is it connected to all the 8 things we're talking about? And this is the answer, being that the teachings of Baal Shem Tov was not about people should learn to do mitzvahs, daven. That was already happening. The purpose of his movement was, the purpose of Chassidic teaching was that people should have a much greater awareness and consciousness of Hashem, and having love for Hashem, and more awe for Hashem, and having a deeper level of faith in Hashem, to see Hashem in everything that happens in the world. One of the things that bring the presence of Hashem out in the open in a way like nothing else are miracles. When you see a miracle, you openly see the hand of Hashem. Because what is it that hides godliness more than anything else? Nature. You know, people don't believe in God. What do they believe in? Nature. This happened because of Mother Nature. It's so laughable when you have people talking, nature did this and nature did that, as if there's some sort of a force called nature. But that is what people believe in. There's a system of nature, and that's responsible for everything that happens. So when something occurs which is beyond nature, the doctor says no way that this person could have a baby. The military expert says no way that they could defeat the enemy. Or the lawyer says there's no way, I know I'm an expert in the field, there's no way that you can win this case. And then miraculously the baby is born, or the war is won, like the 6-day war, or other miracles that occur. There is a situation where you see godliness in a more open way. In fact, when Israel had the 6-day war and many other the miracles, and sometimes with individuals, when a miracle happens, you find that individuals turn to the direction of getting closer to Hashem. Why? Because when they see a miracle, it's like seeing Hashem in an open way, and then they're inspired to become closer and to embrace Hashem completely. So therefore, in the generation of the Baal Shem Tov, where, as we said, godliness was so concealed and so much needed to be done, that we should have a heightened awareness and consciousness of Hashem, and this should penetrate everything we do. Every mitzvah I do should be out of love for Hashem and awareness of Hashem and my faith in Hashem. So this comes with the miracles, and that's what's the advantage of the Rebbe performing the miracles and repeating miracle stories. And basically this sums it up, that this is all where the Baal Shem Tov was leading us to. And this is the purpose of Chassidus and the Chassidic way of life, that we should be able to develop and strengthen the neshama of Judaism, the soul of Judaism. That's what it's all about. So I want to conclude that tomorrow night is the Yontif of Shavuos, and as we spoke about this in the other classes, Shavuos is the Yontif where the Torah was given. It's also the Yartzeit, the day of passing of David HaMelech, King David, the day of passing of the Baal Shem Tov, and it's also the day that is connected to Moshe Rabbeinu. He's the one who gave us the Torah. And all three of these three names that we mentioned, they're all connected to redemption. King David, he's the one who established the Davidic dynasty, the dynasty of Melech HaMashiach. That's what Mashiach is all about. He will be the one to continue eternally the dynasty and the kingdom of King David. The Baal Shem Tov, so he was the one who spread the teachings of Chassidus, the hidden secrets of Torah, with the purpose that this will hasten the coming of Mashiach. And Moshe Rabbeinu, he was the first one to redeem the Jewish people in Egypt. And it says he'll also be there together with Mashiach to redeem the people in the time of the end of the Golus. So as we approach Shavuos, we're getting ready for Matan Torah, to receive the Torah. And in fact, just to mention, the Rabbi emphasized how important it is that everyone should go to Shul on the first day of Shavuos especially, and hear the reading of the Aseret Adibros, the 10 Commandments. When a Yom Tov comes around, spiritually, we're experiencing whatever happened the first time. So spiritually, it reoccurs that God is giving the Torah once again to the Jewish people. But where can I sort of feel this and experience this in a more revealed way? When I go to the shul and they're actually reading from the Torah scroll, the Aseret Adibros. And the Rabbi said, especially to bring children, young children to shul. The reason why there's an emphasis on children is because when Hashem gave the Torah to the Jews, he said, who will be the guarantor? You know, when you take a loan, they ask you, who's going to guarantee that you'll pay back? Here Hashem said, I'm giving you the Torah. Who will guarantee that this will be preserved? And the Jewish people said, our sages. Hashem said, not good enough. Then they said, our prophets, not good enough. Then they said, our avos, our forefathers, no. Then finally they said, our children. And then Hashem said, yes, they're the proper guarantors. If children get an education of Torah and mitzvahs, then Judaism will last. If God forbid the children don't, then there's no foundation. And if there's no foundation, there's no building. So Shavuos is connected to children, and they should also be there. So I'd like to wish everybody a happy Yom Tov. And in the Rebbe's words, we should have an experience, Kabbalah Satira, receiving of the Torah, B'simcha b'pnimius, which means to receive it with joy. And we should be able to internalize the teachings of Torah. And most of all, we should be celebrating Shavuos in Yerushalayim, in the Beis HaMikdash, with Mashiach, who is going to come take him Yad Mamish.